Hello, Assalamu alaikum and Sat Sri Akal. I, Fasih Syed, welcome you in another episode of Golden Pillars with Fasih Syed. During the last episode, we been talking a lot about health issues of our older adult people in Canada. But today it is going to be very excited episode because we have among us a young girl, just like my daughter, and one of the youngest member of parliament, I must say, no doubt about one of the youngest. She is a member of parliament from Erin Mills, and she is very hardworking. She is very decent, very soft, and very polite. She is none other than Miss Iqra Khalid.
Thank you.
Tell us about who is Iqra Khalid in person.
Iqra Khalid is a daughter, is a sister, is a friend. Between my three brothers and mom and dad and my nieces and nephews and my puppies, I'm the average young woman in Mississauga Erin Mills.
You say that you are an average, but I say you are very hardworking, very soft spoken, and very dedicated. Is it true?
I try, and I say average because I find that the average young woman like myself is dedicated, is hardworking, and is soft-spoken. So I think I represent the masses here.
So my first question is, where you born?
I was born in Bahawalpur, Pakistan.
Okay. When you came?
19.
Definitely you must have come with your parents.
I did. With my mom and dad and my three brothers, 1998, August of 1998.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is your qualification?
I'm a lawyer by profession. I graduated with my undergraduate degree, honors bachelor's from York University in criminology and professional writing. The idea was to be a journalist, but I think destiny had me going elsewhere. So then I went to law school in the U.S. in Michigan, and came back and qualified. Got called to the bar in 2015.
So you were a nerd in your schools or college?
Very much so. Yes, I was. Although I was a nerd in up until high school, and then when I went to university, I became known as a disturber. I became a student advocate for speaking up for students, and I represented the university, York University, in their student alumni program. So a lot of their fundraising, etc., they would use me as a model student, and so I joined a lot of organizations. And my first interaction with the political world was during the 2006 earthquake in Pakistan that had happened. And so we were raising money at York University. We ended up raising a couple of tons of supplies and about $25,000 worth of food, worked with the university, etc., and with the student population. And ever since then, I've been an advocate for those that need the help.
So where you spend your childhood?
Where did I spend my childhood? Mostly at home. रोटी पकाना सीखी है, कपड़े सीना सीखे हैं. Yes. Between three brothers and mom and dad, I spent most of my time at home.
So, did you have a very loving relationship with your siblings, or you've been a mischievous one and fighting all the time with your elder brothers?
So my brothers and I, we never fought. Like, we didn't fight each other. हम मिलके इकट्ठे होके we would fight other people.
Okay.
In fact, there were a number of times when I got called into the principal's office because I would beat up other kids that were making fun of my brothers, my younger brothers. We were in the same school. I remember one time मैंने काफी मार कुटाई की थी एक बच्चे की बेचारे की because he was making fun of my little brother, and I was not having any of it. I said, how dare you, don't ever look at him again.
तो घर में complaints आती होंगी?
Yeah. कहते थे ये दादी है हमारे मोहल्ले की.
Okay. Was there any particular moment or influence in your life that sparked your interest in politics?
It was a very natural transition for me. When we moved to Canada, I was 12 years old, and we were coming from England, and then Pakistan, and then Canada. And I was really surprised about the environment that Canada had. I mean, we lived in a very white dominated neighborhood when we moved here, and I was surprised, how is it that my front neighbor doesn't look like my side neighbors, doesn't look like my back neighbor, and yet we're still so peaceful. And we are one of the most peaceful countries in the world. So I started volunteering everywhere to try to understand my community. Canada was my adopted home. So I thought, let me figure out who we are as a country. Where is my place in this country? And so I would volunteer in food banks or in the library. I was teaching art to kids at the Art Gallery of Ontario. I was everywhere. And that's, I think, when I realized that it's not about, how do we get along? It's about how do we continue to work to get along in our country. And that's really what interested me in politics.
Okay. And who was your role model in politics or elsewhere?
And I think every single male Pakistani person can relate to this. My mom is the best politician in the world, and I learned from her a lot. And my dad is also an excellent community builder. So my mom and dad are always my role models.
So not in the politics?
I mean, Angela Merkel, the previous chancellor for Germany, I really look up to her. I also look up to the previous prime minister for New Zealand. She was also really phenomenal. So there's a lot of, I think, role models for me to follow.
So why particularly you are having role model of a progressive political leader? Why not the other one otherwise?
Well, one of the first autobiographies I read was of Benazir Bhutto. I find her story to be very interesting, and she comes from a political family. Like, again, I come from a middle class family. I'm the first politician in the entire generation of my family. So for me, I try to look at people that are similar. I mean, if you look at Angela Merkel, she left when she retired from politics. She left with 0 properties. She left just with her husband and out the door, still living in a rental home. To me, that is what public service is all about. It's not about you building yourself and your own jaidad or whatever you want to call it. It's about giving to the community and building sadka jariya.
Yeah, I visited Germany, a couple of months before, and I interviewed so many people there, and all of them were saying that they like chancellor. So anyway, how do you balance your political life with your personal life?
I don't have a personal life. I mean, I just recently got a cat, but other than that, I dedicate 24 hours a day to my politics.
So you don't have any time to spend with your parents and your brothers and your hobbies?
I do. I mean, it's all about balance. So I always say, politics is not, and being a member of parliament is not. It's not a job. It's a lifestyle. When I'm on call 24/7. People call me sometimes at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Oh, ye masla ho gaya. I've got this issue, and if I'm awake, and usually I am, try to resolve that issue. But you should talk to my mom. She complains about my very vibrant lifestyle a lot.
Yeah. So, do your family or friend sometimes challenges your views, political views?
All the time.
Do you have a conversation, debate, and
every single evening at my dinner table at home with mom and dad and my brothers, with my friends, they challenge me all the time. And I use a lot of their feedback to really push my own advocacy forward as well. and to build my own case as well. If I strongly believe in something, that debate is a healthy debate. To say, let's listen to what the opposing viewpoint is. And if they're able to convince me, I'm convinced. Or sometimes I convince them. But that's what democracy is all about. It's about healthy debate.
Can you tell us one example, what was the issue where your siblings challenges you? What was the issue and what was the topic? Why they challenge you?
So there have been a lot of misinformation, disinformation campaigns that have been ongoing, especially with the former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and especially on the issue of COVID-related supports. My brothers and I, we really butted heads to talk about, were these benefits actually beneficial to our community or not? And so, they had the anecdotal evidence to say people misuse these benefits, and I had the statistical evidence to say that these are all the families, all the supports that we were able to provide to make sure that people didn't become homeless, that people were able to sustain their business, etc. So, overall, I think both of us realized that there were some good, some bad, and we have decided to move forward.
So at the end of the day, who wins? You or your brothers or your parents?
My mom is always the winner.
Oh, okay, Iqra, now next question. What is the single biggest issue facing your constituents?
I think right now the biggest challenge that we have is the recession that Canadians are facing, not just in Mississauga, Erin Mills, but all across the country. And that is increasing cost of living, that is less access to jobs, and all of that is because our middle class, our small to medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, are struggling with their business. SMEs create the biggest job boost and the biggest circulation of funds within our country, and especially in ridings like Mississauga, Erin Mills. So we need to do better to support our small business, and I'm hopeful that we're doing so. So in October, my youth council is actually creating, we're working together to build a job fair. So we're bringing in a lot of our SMEs, we're bringing in a lot of big companies as well, and giving access to young people to find jobs, because right now Ontario's unemployment rate is, for young people, is about 14%, and I think we can do better.
So these are the personal efforts which the MP Iqra Khalid is taking. What your government is doing to address this issue?
Well, I think when it comes to building trust in the Canadian economy, when it comes to making sure that Canadian business is able to thrive. So there's, right now, we know that the world is, as big as the world is, it's a very small world also in terms of globalization, in terms of how we do business. We've seen the impact of the tariffs down south with Donald Trump. And I think the negotiations are going really well, especially with the steel, aluminum, the softwood lumber, and the farm, the agri-foods business as well. But we've also really been diversifying our business. So we have over 100 trade commissioners in Canada, positioned all over the world to help Canadian companies build business and diversify their business. And with those over 100, trade agreements, some of them are free trade agreements, it really helps to move things forward. But right now, I think our number one priority is how do we get province to province to province? How do we build amongst ourselves? Canada is one of the largest land masses in the world, right? I mean, agar aap yahan se flight pakde to Vancouver, it's like a 7-hour. Yeah, it's a massive country, and so we have to make sure that all of our individual provinces have the ability to do better business together. And I think that is really going to help. The second thing is supply management and creating a supply chain. How do we get our goods to market? अगर कोई farmer northern Alberta में बैठे हुए हैं, वो अपनी गंदम Indonesia कैसे भिजवाएंगे, right? How do we get that? So that is another really big aspect of of how to improve trade in Canada.
That is an excellent move by the present government, and that will boost our trade with the new market.
Yeah.
But my question is regarding internal employment. How is there any policy by the Liberal government where we can improve our employment resources and employment chances more?
So there's two things. The first is, when in terms of creating employment opportunities by the government, we have the youth employment strategy, and then we also have the Canada Summer Jobs. I mean, in my riding alone, just this past year, I was able to create about 400 jobs in my riding for young people. And then the youth employment strategy, how do we transition kids from university, from college into the workforce? But the second piece of it also is, how do we empower small business to be able to hire? I mean, if a business is not able to have the power to be able to afford a $40,000 employee for the year, then we need to spark that growing power, that scaling power within small business, so that they are able to do the hiring. And that comes from consumer trust, that comes from a stable economy. And right now, unfortunately, not just in Canada, but all over the world, economies are very unstable because of the United States.
So Canada is mostly importing goods from abroad, different countries. Is there any policy by the government to make locally, all those goods are locally in Canada, as Donald Trump is doing, make America great again? So is there any policy by this government or your government that make Canada great? Not again, make Canada great.
Canada is already very great,
yeah.
But we can do better, of course, always. So Canada is the breadbasket of half the world. Dale, lentils, pulses, even to India, Pakistan, Canada is the largest supplier of pulses. So they get shipped to Pakistan, India, they package them and then sell them back to Canada. Talking about natural resources, Canada has, yes, a lot of oil reserves, which we send to the US to refine, and then we bring it back through our pipelines. Canada also has major canola supplies. We have minerals. In fact, one of Canada's biggest industries across the world is mining. Even in Africa, where Canada brings in billions and billions of dollars in minerals and products that the world needs. The challenge, again, it's not just goods to market. It's not just about building in Canada. The majority of our population in Canada lives across the US-Canada border. If you go north, even 2 hours north from here, you'll see that a lot of Canada is uninhabited. And what we need to do, and Prime Minister Carney is absolutely right, is to build nation-building infrastructure to expand our population, to expand our growth into Canada, to build infrastructure, so that not only are we able to live in more stable housing across the country, but also to be able to get better goods to market. When we move to rural areas, we're now creating more and more opportunity for us to get our goods to market as well. So I think we are faced with a number of different issues, and not just about labor market growth, which is based on immigration, not just based on our farms and our agriculture, which is based on climate, which is another big challenge, climate change, but also how do we get our natural resources to market as well.
As you just mentioned, that the canola supply is the biggest trade of Canada. Recently, China has imposed 75% tariff on canola. So how this government is going to meet this challenge?
Well, this is not new. The canola challenge with China has been ongoing for about, from my point of view, about 6-7 years now. So it's not new. I had gone to Indonesia and to Vietnam with a foreign affairs minister a couple of years ago, and one of our biggest priorities was building a market for canola. So, for example, in Indonesia, they use palm oil instead of canola oil. Palm oil is cheap. It's also not very good for your health. And with a growing middle class in Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, now we're seeing that there's more of a buying power for people to buy healthier oil, and canola is the best option for them. So it's not about being reliant on one country to say, okay, you're going to buy all of our canola and then TKG, we're good to go. It's about diversifying. The same with the US, the same with China, the same with other bigger markets, is that it's sometimes better to diversify and to sell, even if it's a smaller amount, to sell to other countries so that you're not 100% reliant on any one country. And so, we built a market in Indonesia, in Vietnam, in Malaysia, because as we're seeing the growth of middle class, we're seeing more and more smaller countries that may not have the large buying power of China now being interested in wanting to buy Canadian canola.
So, as you mentioned that we should have a diversified way of exporting our goods. So, for the last many years, Canada was completely reliant on the US market. Do you think it was a mistake?
I think governments should not plan for tomorrow, but they should plan for what happens 50 years from now. And what happened with the Stephen Harper government in those 10 years was that there was no investment in infrastructure and there was no diversifying of trade. And when Justin Trudeau took over, he spent a lot of time, creating the National Infrastructure Bank and also building a lot of trade agreements with other countries in the world. I think that helped, but we won't see the results of that until another 10 years. Governments, whether we like it or not, operate a lot more slowly than private business does. And it's because that we try to bring everybody together as we're trying to navigate. So yes, there were mistakes made, whether it's by the Harper government, whether it's by the Trudeau government, but I think that we understand where we need to go now. And we need to have a 10-year, 50-year plan as opposed to a tomorrow plan.
So my next question is that what do you do to relax or recharge when you are in not House of Commons?
I have a cat.
That's it?
I hang out with my nieces and nephews. We play. I paint. I do like to paint a lot. Acrylic on canvas. I box. And I hang out with my family.
And do you have a habit of reading books?
I love reading books, although nowadays, for the past decade, I've been reading briefs and notes as opposed to fiction or like some nice novel, a juicy mystery, crime mystery. I love crime mysteries; they're so good.
Do you watch movies?
I do watch movies. Yes.
How about Pakistani movies?
What was the last Pakistani movie I watched?
And Return of Maula Jat.
I have not watched that movie at all, unfortunately. Lekin dekhoongi, I think, is it on Netflix?
So, one more question regarding politics. Many people feel disconnected with the politics. Why it is so?
I think there's a number of different factors. The first, whenever there is a recession, and this is historically shown, people feel genuinely like somebody to blame, right? To say this is the reason why we aren't successful. The second is there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, which, when there's a question as to whether something is truthful or not, you genuinely feel that there is a mistrust in government and government institutions. And journalism is part of that. They are the watchdogs, and so when we see that that misinformation, disinformation, which leads ultimately, like what we've seen in our country, foreign interference, of people trying to maneuver Canadian opinion, then ultimately people tend to lose interest in government institutions, in democratic institutions at the same time. So I think those are some of the reasons, and then also I think our education curriculum is quite terrible. I think we need to do better in civic education, civic engagement. I mean, in my office, I take interns from high school, from university, kids that are genuinely interested. My youth council, again, to engage people, young people especially, in politics. But I see that a lot of people don't take that time, don't take that interest, and we get, as a politician, we just get accused of, oh, all politicians are the same, oh, they're all corrupt. Well, no, we're not, right? We genuinely care about building our country and building up the next generation of leaders in our country also. So we need to find that balance, and I think civic education is very, very important, and I encourage our provincial government to start caring more.
So, do you have any plan to bring in the public at large, or especially Pakistani Canadian community, to bring them in the mainstream politics?
Absolutely. I mean, like if you look at our current federal MPs that were elected, we have how many, 6 or 7?
6, yeah.
Yeah, that are of Pakistani heritage. And I think that's an amazing progress, considering the Pakistani community is still a very young community in Canada, where the majority of Pakistanis immigrated in the mid to late 90s to now. So I think the Pakistani community has tremendous potential and has a lot, has provided a lot of support to Canada and can continue to do so. My biggest worry is that our young people have become so disenfranchised with democratic institutions that they're just no longer interested. But we need to nurture that, and we need to create civic engagement.
Iqra, your biggest, and remarkable achievement was, a motion against, hate, Islamophobia. But these days, the hatred and hatred against the Islam is spreading at a larger scale. If you see the Twitters, X now, so you will see tons of tweets against the Islam. In some cases, the people are burning Quran. Some cases, there is a maligning campaign in England. They are showing that the Pakistani community is involved in rape of young girls. All this going on. So how we can address this issue? How can we meet this kind of hatred against Islam?
As I have been saying for the past 10 years, there's no flip of a switch that we legislate, we create a law, and then all of a sudden this goes away. The reality is, we need to continue to build bridges, all levels of government, civil society, organizations, and individual Canadians to come together and talk about our differences and to acknowledge and then leverage how we can use them better to build stronger bridges in our Canadian community and society. And it's not just about Islam, it's also about Judaism, it's also about Hinduism and Sikhism and all of our diversity. So, as I was saying earlier, when I first moved to Canada, I was shocked to see how are we so different and yet so peaceful at the same time. And I think in order for us to get there, we need to have better education of our next generation. When immigrants come to Canada, they come to escape a life, right? They're looking to build a better life. And they also bring with them their baggage, their fears, their traumas from their previous life into Canada. And Canada being the diverse country that it is, like people tend to now, use their baggage to define who they are here in Canada. But our next generation, if we're able to educate them properly, I think we can build a better country for all of us. And I'll give you an example. When I was 6 years old, when I moved to England with my dad was doing his PhD over there. And one of my teachers was a Jewish woman from Ireland. And I was a really young kid. I didn't know the difference between different religions or anything. And I just come from Pakistan. And the way that she taught our class about all the different religions, about just to have respect. That's all, right? You don't have to believe in it in order to respect somebody who does believe in it, right? And that education, that was grade 3 and grade 4. That education has served me to this day, where I have a 39-year-old woman still relying on my grade 3, grade 4 education in empathy, in understanding, and in acknowledging diversity, and still having respect for the people around me. And I think that our education curriculum needs to do that more and more.
We have among us one community activist and anchor person, Mr. Rashid. Do you have any question from Iqra?
Taking this opportunity, since Iqra is with us and she is a member of the Legislation Assembly, I have two questions regarding the community actually. One is regarding the immigration. You know that especially about the visitors visas, and it's been a long time that we are facing this situation. Even I sponsored my my real sister, and they denied. My wife sponsored her brother and sister, and they've been all around the world, like in Europe and everywhere, and they denied that lack of travel history. The other is about the being, we are working for the senior citizens, about the pension. Considering the inflation and all other index, it's not possible to live on the basic pension in this situation. So my question is about both the things. What is your government is doing, and what is your intake in this situation?
It's a very good question, and both of them. So firstly, I'll address the immigration question. You're absolutely right in that there are challenges. And based on the statistics within our country as to where visitors are coming from, et cetera, decisions are made. And in fact, there's a big move towards artificial intelligence. Now, we've been advocating to make sure that people like yours, a genuine case, is able to come and visit in Canada. In fact, my office has one of the highest success rates. I'm quite proud of it. But it's because we really try our level best to bring the human element, the storytelling as to, like a visa officer looking at a file is not going to know who this person is, right? They're going to base their decision on whatever documents they see and then whatever policy is there, right? But if we are able to properly tell a story to say, this is why this person wants to come to Canada, I think that, we can do, and that's what we do in our office. We do handle things a little bit differently, but you're right in that a genuine visitor into Canada should be able to come, spend their money, and then leave at the same time, right? In the future, if there's any issues, please get in touch with me. I'm more than happy to help assist in any of those cases. And then the second question
about the pension.
The pensions.
Yeah.
So this was one of my biggest advocacy points that as the chair of Women's Caucus was able to do. We wanted to increase old age security and GIS to match the living income standards. And so in the last budget, 2024, was it 23? We were successful in getting it increased from people aged 75 and over. But we want, obviously, everybody who's retired from 65 over to be able to receive those benefits also. And that comes from advocacy. That comes from understanding that our economy is not just, and our country is not just based on who makes the top dollar. It's also based on a sense of belonging, a sense of community. And that's why Canada is different from the rest of the world in that we don't make money off of healthcare. We don't make money off of social services. We provide those because that is a Canadian way. So I really do take your point, and I will be advocating for this for our next budget coming up in the month.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have another guest. He's from India, and he's a financial analyst and a business entrepreneur. Mr. Farman Khan, do you have any question?
Yes.
Sit down.
It's a question. As Fasih said, I'm an investor, individual investor. I don't work for others' money, but I do invest my own money in the financial market. Since Trump administration came, Canadian lost the trust in the American market and the American administration, and we find that a lot of Canadian money is invested into the American market. And the people were demanding that the government should bring this money back into the Canadian market. The biggest example is the Canadian pension plan. Since 2007, Canadian government started to Canada pension plan invested money into the American market, and now it is $63 billion money. So people are expecting that the Canadian government should bring back this money and invest in the Canadian market to build our own country and own economy. So, do you have any updates?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think a lot of the financial markets and investments come from trust in not just the Canadian market, but the US market as well. We talk about how Canada is investing through the Canada Pension Plan. The ultimate objective of the Canada Pension Plan is to grow the money that people pool together to be able to then support them when they need that money in their retirement, right? And right now, over these past decades, we've seen that the US, yes, solid investment. In fact, the border between Canada and the US is the longest, the largest border, unmanned, it's not a hostile border in any way. And that's because the Canada and US people-to-people relationship, business-to-business relationship has traditionally been very strong. Now, what we've seen this year is that there has been, I think, over a 37% reduction in Canadians visiting the US because of the boycotts that are happening. That is impacting the US economy. Now, when FIFA, World Soccer Cup, one of the biggest events that happen, they step away from the US to say, well, you know what, if you're not giving visas to people, then we don't want to have games with you. We're going to change our game schedule to Canada and to Mexico. And big loser for the US. Same way with mail system. Japan Post has pulled out of saying, you know what, we don't want to deal with you, US, because you are not allowing our mail to get to where it needs to go. You're not treating our people with respect. So these things, you're absolutely right, are impacting the US economy. And I will be bringing this up. I think that's a really good point to say, well, is it now a good thing for us to be investing our seniors, our future pensions into the US, or should we be diversifying? And but then where do we diversify to? When we continue to build that people-to-people relationship, and when we know that there's only 2 more years left of the Trump administration, are things going to get better? How long will it take for them to get better? I'm not an economist. I see that you are, though. But these are, I think, very valid questions that we should be asking right now.
Yeah, I was adding one part. I personally feel it should be done. The money, semi-government or government organizations, they invested money in US market. And I know Mark Carney is starting a lot of mineral projects in Canada, and they are looking for the investment. Yeah. So what government should do is these money are outside, billions of dollars, especially in the US market. If they bring it back here and they invest in their own projects, that will build the more stronger country.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think those are things that we should be
exploring. I hope one day I read about it.
And see, the investment in England too, a lot of, billions of dollars we invested in British market too.
Yeah,
Canada pension plan.
Yeah, $63 billion are invested in American market.
Yeah.
Imagine if this money comes to the Canadian market, they invest in the project, what government is looking for the outside. How country will be built stronger and this will be for forever. I personally started to withdraw the money from the American market investment because I saw the opportunity in Canada, especially the financial institution, doing better than the American market.
I hope that other people follow suit.
I wish that. And I request to everyone.
We have here Mr. Amjad Rana, he is a UIC Seniors Group coordinator, and he must be talking about a seniors issue. Yeah, Mr. Rana.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Iqra Khalid, for coming here and answering our questions. You have been a kind of role model as well. I've been following your political career since you started there. I really appreciate the way you handle everything. You are so kind, you are so loving, and you are so helpful to others. And you are a people's person, and that is something that I really appreciate. I wanted to ask a question, but my question has been taken up by Mr. Aftab. So I go another way. I'll go regarding the youth. Sometimes that I feel my children are facing these problems. And this is the high cost of education and also the high cost of housing. Because both of these things, maybe they are not in federal purview, but they are still something that is affecting the life of teenagers as such. And the federal government may be able to pitch in and do something about these issues. Because if you have a high loan, then it's difficult for you to live a good life afterwards, So is there something that federal government can do, other provinces or the communities to help there?
Absolutely. I think that's a really important question. One of the biggest challenges right now that we have, looking ahead, is our lack in skilled trades with our young people, right? Young people and their focus on humanities and social sciences and the arts has left our more skilled industries to lack the skills and the skilled trade people that they need in order to function. Whether it's plumbers or mechanics or electricians, those trades we really need to focus on. I remember when I was in high school, we had a Mike Harris government provincially, and the education is the realm of the province, and it was the first time that I had ever experienced a strike. Where teachers and all the school personnel had walked out, and we were left as kids just in the school. The garbage was piling up. We had nothing to do. We weren't taught anything. And our parents, they were all at work, right? So we had no choice but to go to a school that didn't really function as a school.
I remember that time.
Yeah, it was a challenging time, right? And I think that is the crux of it. That when we are pushing forward for building a better Canada, then we also need to make sure that our young people are trained effectively and are well presented to be able to take on these leadership positions, to take on these roles that Canada desperately needs. In fact, that's our biggest deficit right now is the skilled trades amongst young people, and that forces a lot of companies then to go outside of Canada to bring in temporary foreign workers to fill in that gap. So I'm hopeful that as a national, priority that we can set, especially now as we're going through this trade agreement with all of our provinces, that we can also add the curriculum to this to say, look, this is the baseline. This is what we need to produce out of our education system for Canada as a country to be successful. And this is how we're going to do it. So I'm hopeful. I remember last year I had presented this in our budget to say we need to create a council across all provinces to create a baseline curriculum in our country that includes experts for financial literacy, for food and nutrition, for climate change, for skilled and trades, for diversity, equity, inclusion, to say, okay, this is the baseline that all provinces and territories should be following in their public education system. And then if the provinces want to add on anything extra to it, they should and can, right? But I think that having that strong, solid foundation from the federal level and federal leadership would be really helpful to our country.
Also, what would help is also recognition of interprovincial degrees and
right.
skills. And
that is going to be part of the trade agreements.
Big problem for doctors,
Massive.
for engineers.
Yeah.
If you are PNs, you are not recognized in other provinces. You have to do other exams, and this is a barrier.
Yeah. I actually spoke about this in Parliament in May of this year, I think. Yeah. Exactly this issue. Very important.
Thank you very much.
So, remember, MP Iqra, the last issue is the poverty. As you remember, until last year, 55,000 people registered with the food banks in Mississauga. Now this number has raised to 120,000. So my organization too is working hard to fight against the hunger. And you also did the food drive last year for Mississauga Food Bank, and you raised 10,000 pounds of food. But we need a permanent solution. We need to reduce this number to some extent, at least that as there is a general conception that everybody is for origin Canada, but it is not true.
Yeah.
So, is there any plan for the federal government to just fight against the hunger here?
So, in the previous, firstly, let me just say thank you so much to UIC for the amazing work you do in our community, because you are on the front lines of providing support to those that need it the most. In a best case scenario, we shouldn't need a food bank, right? People should be able to afford the food and the roof over their head. And it was that saying in Pakistan, roti, kapda aur makan,
yes.
right? People should be, those are the basic necessities for everyone. So one thing that we have been exploring, especially myself and a number of my colleagues, we've been exploring, is a guaranteed basic income that be provided to all Canadians, and that should help supplement the living and the cost of living for Canadians. Now, there's a number of issues with that. The first is, what is the difference between a guaranteed basic income and a living wage, right? In a capitalist society that we live in, which respects socialist aspects of our community, a living wage is basically, forcing businesses, employees, the private sector, to pay the wages that allow a person to be able to put food on their table, to be able to afford their rent, and to be able to clothe themselves, right? But then also we have to take into consideration that the job market is not what it was in my parents' time, right? Where 9-to-5 job of one person was full-time, it was permanent, it came with benefits, and it fed the whole family. Nowadays, our kids are not doing full-time permanent jobs. Our kids are part of the gig economy. Yahan se kaam pakad liya, yahan se kaam pakad liya, and kids want that. They don't want that full-time 9-to-5. And our labor laws, our employment laws are not now capable of dealing with that kind of mindset, that kind of economy. I mean, COVID changed a lot of things where a lot of now our younger, especially population, want to work from home. And employers, even myself, I don't let my staff work from home either, right? So because we are front facing and we need to have that direct people to people contact ourselves. But I think that there is a massive disconnect between our young generation of workers and the employers that are hiring them. And our labor laws and employment laws need to catch up. And I think we need to really understand, okay, should we be providing a guaranteed basic income like many European countries do to their citizens? Or should we be now forcing the private sector to at least give employees a living wage that they're able to afford all of this, And then also, as from the government perspective, what support systems do we need to provide to our workforce to make sure that they're well taken care of when they don't have the full-time permanent jobs anymore?
So thank you very much, MP Iqra Khalid, for coming here and just and give a very informative discussion. So at the end, as usual, I will say कि आप लोग साथ खैरियत करें, आप लोग सेहत के साथ रहें, और इस दुआ के साथ हम रुखसत हो रहे हैं कि अल्लाह पाक MP इकरा खालिद को और तरक्की दे और आपको सेहत के साथ तंदुरुस्ती अता फरमाए. So पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद. Thank you, Iqra Khalid, and thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.